Love under the scope.
Hello, and welcome back to Love Under the Scope. This is a podcast where we dive deep into everything that concerns being in a long-term relationship and the realities of being with another human being on that level. A long-term relationship takes a lot of commitment, and certainly there's an element of love, but it's also a choice that we make every day to be with our partner, to show up in a certain way, and hopefully do some work on ourselves as we deal with shit that comes up. Inevitably, it's bound to happen when we're with another person on this level, making life happen together. There are bound to be obstacles, there are bound to be low points and difficult moments, and that's what I like to delve into with this show. Not because it's fun necessarily, although it can be fun to go into some of this stuff. I talk about it because I think it's really important for us to face what's going on in our relationship. And I think it's really great for us if we can really take a hard look at some of our own patterns, our own conditioning that we've brought into the relationship and can end up wreaking havoc. We can love our partner so much and be very happy, and also at the same time be frustrated, not knowing what's going on, feeling like you're going into the same things over and over again, maybe. We all end up in these patterns, not only with ourselves, but with our partner too. They get wrapped up into our patterns. We can get wrapped up into theirs, and it can get really messy and it can get confusing. I know that I have felt confused. I still do, regularly with my relationship. That's normal. If we're trying to understand something like ourself or our relationship, it would be normal to run into some confusion and misunderstanding. I have felt that way myself to the extent that I have questioned if I was really meant to be in this relationship. Am I meant to be in a relationship, period? I have questioned if I was worthy of being loved in that way by another person. And through all of these experiences in my relationship, I have sometimes felt alone. And so that is part of why I started this show, so that hopefully somebody out there who is like at a huge low point, maybe they are crying themselves to sleep. I've been there. I hope that that person can hear just one episode of this show and feel like they're not alone. You're not the only one experiencing hardship in a relationship. I do aim to share some strategies and some ideas for going through change and going through difficult moments with your partner. At the end of each show, I try to share some pointers for my experience. These are things that have worked for me in slowly moving through a lot of these things. I can't give you a quick fix. Nobody can really. We have to choose to change. We make that active decision. I am ready to change. I'm ready to take a stand, and I'm no longer willing to live this way anymore. And B, everything takes time. Lasting change that is sustainable takes time to unfold. We experience the change in layers sometimes, where we are going through these little phases as we move through the transformation. Doesn't necessarily all happen at once, or at least that's how I've experienced it, as a slow blooming, a blossoming of something new coming into my life. And I actually prefer it that way personally. I don't love drastic change all at once. I don't like surprises very much. Although they can be fun, I do prefer to settle into change slowly. And isn't it fun when we can change over the course of, let's say, a year, and then look back on where we came from? Oh, this is where I was in my relationship, or just how I felt, and now look where I am today. I'm much more confident. I'm much more open. I am feeling more creative, whatever it is. Change happens even if we're not actively seeking it. Change will always just happen naturally. We can't stop change. So we might as well go with the change and promote it within ourselves. And that leads me into today's topic. We're going to talk about creating change in your relationship. If we are looking for our relationship to change in some way. Maybe we have an idea of what we would want our relationship to look like. Maybe we don't. Maybe we just know something has got to give. Something needs to change. If that is something we are desiring to see in our relationship, how do we go about starting that? Like, how do we actually address and face and then communicate and facilitate change within our relationship? And the obvious answer here, because I am a relationship coach, by the way, my name is Kelby Lauren. I am your host. I'm a relationship coach, and so I work with couples to facilitate change and to work on any patterns that are coming up that they're frustrated with and want to overcome. That would be the obvious answer. Work with a coach. If you want change and you don't know how to achieve it or how to even maybe communicate it with your partner, work with an outside professional. That's not what today's episode is about, though. I'm going to share a strategy that has worked for me in starting the initial phases of change in a relationship. You have an inkling of what you might want. Usually what we want in our relationship, we probably want in our relationship with ourselves as well. So if I'm wanting more pleasure, more passion in my relationship, I probably want more pleasure and passion in my life, not just with my partner. Maybe I even want more passion in my relationship with myself. I want to feel more alive within myself. Usually those two go hand in hand. Anything I'm wanting from the external world, I usually am wanting from the internal world. And that's a good thing because it means that we can start to create change in our external world by working on the internal. That's under our control. We can manage that. I'm not going to say easily because there are some difficult things that will come up when we do work on ourselves, but at least it's on our terms. If I want to feel more passion in my relationship, then I can start by working on what makes me feel passionate within myself, what helps to fuel my fire, what keeps me feeling passionate on my own, and then let's meld it into the relationship in stages. We don't need to do these things overnight. I can't emphasize that enough. It's become very important to me recently that things take time. There's an element of, yes, we can create change, and yes, we can be the ones that are going after and creating and taking action to make change. And there's an element of waiting and watching, observing, and allowing the unfolding of the change, of the seeds that we have planted. We get to now watch the flowers bloom. Isn't that wonderful? It doesn't always have to be that we're taking action all the time. There are moments where we can sit back and take it all in. Another element of this idea is that when I get clear on what makes me feel more passion within myself, and I work on that, and I address certain conditioning and work through some stuff on my own, that gives me some clarity around, hey, this is what passion is for me. This is how I feel passionate. This is what I want to feel in my external world. I've created it, or at least started to plant the seed of passion within myself. And now I know how I might like it to look in the external. So it gives us clarity on what we actually want. And then you can communicate that to your partner, perhaps in a way that is less attacking and asking them to provide you the passion. A lot of the time we will want to place blame on our partner for not providing the passion, not being the one to save the day for us and read our mind. Right? So by working internally first and doing so with some patience and self-compassion, we can then come into this conversation with our partner knowing what we want. And doesn't that help our partner for us to be direct and to be loving and to have some compassion for the situation? This strategy that I'm going to share with you of doing the internal work first and making change there first, and then bringing it into the relationship, I'm not going to say that it works for every single type of change that you might desire. There are some very urgent changes that sometimes need to happen in a relationship. There are times when we need to ask for something very bluntly, and we need to have a conversation immediately. There are certainly topics where this strategy is not necessarily appropriate. Where I would use this strategy is if you are wanting to bring in some subtle change to the relationship. Remember that example earlier of more passion? I'm going to use more playfulness. That's something that I personally have worked on. Although I would say passion and playfulness go hand in hand for me. I could probably use those words interchangeably. If I'm wanting something like more playfulness, can you see how that might be better started within me so that it can spread outward into the relationship? Playfulness is not something that I would necessarily directly ask my partner for, me personally, right off the bat. If I brought in this idea, hey, I want to feel more playful, I want to have more fun, I might tell my partner, hey, I want to have more fun. But it would behoove me then to take that information and to start looking at myself with a magnifying glass and my own stuff, and not expecting that because I asked my partner for more fun, for more playfulness, that it's suddenly going to be served up to me on a silver platter. Hopefully your partner is willing to work with you and maybe is interested in also achieving that. Hey, yeah, I want more playfulness too. And then it becomes a shared experience. But we certainly benefit from starting from within. And that applies to a lot of life, by the way. I'll dive into the relationship aspect of this theory, and you can take it and apply it to anything that upsets you in the external. We can usually go back to the internal and see, where is this stemming from? And that doesn't mean that it's easy, by the way. It's easier said than done, and sometimes requires the help of a professional like myself or a therapist that can walk you through all of the conditioning that all of us humans go through. There's no shame. There's nothing wrong with you specifically. Your conditioning, is wrong. We're all conditioned. And a lot of the time it's in ways that end up being limiting to us. A lot of the time what we are really desiring in our relationship that we're not getting, the change that we want to create, it's actually an issue that I am working on within myself. It may be projected onto my relationship. I might be seeing it in the external, but it really is an issue that is inside of me. Every single human being goes through conditioning from our parents, from the society that we live in, from religion, from our friends, family, teachers, and so on. We are told what to believe. We receive information. We perceive information in our own very specific way, and that molds our beliefs about the world, what we expect from the world. Well, this is how men are, and this is how women are, and this is how the world works. It's very much stamped into our consciousness so that we end up actually seeing those things in our reality, the things we believe very deeply that we've carried from our childhood into the present moment. They are etched into our brain, telling us what to expect from every single moment. So if we want a different image projected out in front of us, a different hologram, some people might say, then we need to go in and fix the projector. This is one of the books that I read talked about us as the projector. I project an image in front of me. The problem isn't with the image. The problem is within me. I didn't really mean to go down that path of the hologram, but it does apply here because a lot of what I'm going to be talking about has to do with mirroring. Your partner acts as your most in-depth mirror. It's the person that is around you the most, presumably. It's the person that you love dearly. For a lot of people, it is the one person that you love with your whole heart. Lots of emotion wrapped up in there. Our lives, our very spirit, our energy, everything is all wrapped up together. And we are giving each other a constant feedback. Think about it. Your very perception of this world, of the earth, is based on your beliefs. Your partner is basically serving you up what you believe about the world, especially if those beliefs are limiting and especially if they're limiting around the gender of your partner. You may have beliefs about men that they are not safe, that you don't trust them, that all they want is sex. You may be applying those beliefs to your partner, the person that you love very dearly. You might not be conscious of this. A lot of the time, they're very deep in the subconscious, these beliefs. That's why I stress again that they take time to come up, because these beliefs are moving through all the layers of our awareness. You're very much digging them up. And we're digging them up because we can take them and turn them into something that is actually really beautiful. You can take all of the shit that you don't want in your relationship, that you're sick of. I'm tired of not feeling connected with you. I'm tired of our humdrum routine. All of that shit that you are not wanting anymore, that feels stuck, that feels stagnant, that feels just not fun anymore. You can take that information and use it to transform what's going on so that it looks like what you want. So all the shit, all of the conditioning, all of the emotions that are stored in the stuff that you keep getting that you don't want, the disconnection, the dissatisfaction, the boredom, the anxiety, the frustration, the fear. I can't believe I haven't brought up fear yet. All of that, you can use that as information to actually transform yourself. This work is not for the faint of heart. That doesn't mean that it's impossible. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do this work. And it's absolutely worth the work that it requires. I have had some moments of very deep struggle doing this work, of feeling isolated and alone, because there's something about getting deep into this stuff that can feel like you're going into a rabbit hole. This is my advice to anybody who's doing self-help and doing so in sort of an intensive way. Not that we need to do it that way, but if you are the type like me that you just can't get enough and you're always wanting more, you can feel kind of isolated. And so it's very important to reach out to people and have human beings that you're interacting with. I know a lot of the time I want to isolate myself when I'm doing this kind of thing and looking at my stuff, and especially when it feels more intense like it has recently. I almost feel annoyed by interacting with people, and I have to remind myself, this is really good for you. Magic happens when human beings interact with each other, even if it feels monotonous or you're annoyed or whatever it might be. Just interacting with a human when you're going through the cave of inner work, it's really helpful. By the way, I love this work so much. I mean, there's a reason I have this show. Sometimes I feel like I get a little bit too down on how hard it is to do this work. I'm saying this work. I just mean, self-reflection and really actually looking at stuff, and not just like I've done in the past, or I'm just taking a peek and going, oh yeah, I did work. Really actually sitting in the shit of what I used to believe about myself, all the old stuff, really allowing myself to sit in it, and along the way, creating this self-compassion. These are some fundamental aspects, in my opinion, of the topic for today, which is starting with change by doing work with yourself. These are some fundamental aspects of that. Would be the sitting in the shit and letting it just be there and being okay and actually accepting that this is a part of you that is maybe a past part of you that was afraid, or inner child, or a belief that you formed at some point in your life that is holding you back, that is now not allowing you to create this change in your relationship. Yeah, it's not always pleasant to do that. We also want to learn how to create self-compassion, or how to tap into self-compassion, I should say, because, compassion and love, they're always around us. If you want more information about love, I did a podcast episode last week about it. And like, what is love? Self-love and learning how to actually love myself. it sounds corny. Sometimes I think people use the term, love yourself or self-love, and it's very much thrown around. Like you could take a bath and put a mask on and get your nails done, and that's, self-love, which it is, don't get me wrong. But there are so many more layers of depth to actually loving yourself. And I would say part of it is that you are able to be in the shit that I just talked about. Right. So we're creating change. Part of creating change is being in the old shit, the stuff that you don't like, being okay and accepting what's there. What are the beliefs? What is the conditioning that created this thing that you do not like? Can we also have self-compassion and self-love while we sit through that? Because it can be unpleasant. Sometimes it can make us feel like everything is wrong. We're just swimming in our own shit. And so to have not only a community, maybe you have family or friends that can be supportive for you in that time, and tell them, I'm going through change and it's been difficult and I'm isolating, or I'm really stressed, or I'm feeling kind of crazy. We do need to have those touch points in other people. And can we have a part in ourself that has the self-compassion, that holds the self-love, and that can be there with us? I mean, it literally can feel like there's another voice that comes in. This is in my experience. When I'm in these moments where things are difficult, it feels like I'm slogging through quicksand and don't know how much longer I can go through this. There is that voice that I've developed that is supportive and that knows this is okay. This is part of the process of change. Allowing yourself to just kind of hibernate for a period of time sometimes, because death is happening. A death of a part of us, of a belief, of a way that we lived previously. It's dying. It's going away. So wouldn't it be understandable that there would be a grieving process? Now, when we grieve, what do? We lay around, we cry. We watch movies. We go into our comfort zone, and we usually stay there for a period of time, because those emotions that come up with grief, well, grief is the emotion. When it comes forward, it can be hard. It can be very hard to get through that. It is very helpful, like I said, to have that part of you that can, kind of like a mother cradling her child as the child cries and screams and throws a tantrum. That's one part of us. And then the other part would be there to soothe and to be understanding and to know what needs to happen. This is a big part of the change that I've been going through recently, is learning about this part of myself that is very knowing. If I can have the clarity in my mind to go and listen. She knows what needs to happen. She knows what she wants. She knows what she desires, and how to create it moment to moment. It's really actually quite cool. We all have this. This is an intuition, some people might call it. It's a knowing within ourself. Everybody has it. It just takes practice with actually tuning in and listening and noticing how your intuition comes to you. Some people don't hear a voice. They might have a feeling in the body. They might have a memory come up, or see some kind of unrelated, or see a vision. You might experience all of the above. Your intuition comes to you in a very unique way. Now, I talked about mirroring earlier. I want to go back to that. This is the really fun part about creating change in a relationship by starting with you, is that when you do this work and you go through the hardship and you come out on the other side of one of the many tunnels that you will probably go through, that I have gone through myself. It's like, okay, I come out and then I go back in. So it's just a cyclical thing. But when we can come out on the other end and feel good about what we have changed, how we have managed to do some work on ourselves, maybe change our perception a little bit, then we come into the relationship with a different energy. And that is an energy of invitation. Whether it's spoken or not, there will be an invitation for your partner to meet you in this place. If you wanted to create more playfulness, you did some work, you excavated your beliefs about playfulness. Maybe you found out why you are so serious all the time. Maybe you found out you were scolded, or you felt wrong for feeling playful. And maybe you felt scared of being playful because that might mean that you would lose control. That would be my experience. So you've delved into these beliefs, you've done the work, you have created playfulness, maybe even just in tiny moments in your own life. You have let playfulness come to you more often. You appreciate having fun. You've been able to let go of control and seriousness a little bit. Your partner probably has picked up on that, whether they have said something or not, and whether they actually can sense it, consciously. They may subconsciously have picked up on the work that you have been doing, and they may start to feel a pull. For me, when I started to create more playfulness in my life and therefore my relationship, there was a softening. I had been meeting myself mostly and my partner with a lot of hardness, with seriousness, with wanting to control and make sure that every detail was perfect. And then I began to soften. And it took time. It took a lot of time. I started to create compassion for myself and therefore compassion for my partner. And when you can have more compassion, usually playfulness is right around the corner, or at least it was in my experience. That acted as a invitation to my partner. Hey, do you want to be more playful with me? And I'm meeting him with more softness. You can never create softness with hardness. Hardness creates hardness. If you are coming at me with hardness, I'm going to act defensively a lot of the time. Some people may not, but it certainly isn't going to soften my heart. It certainly isn't going to make me feel warm and fuzzy that you are coming and attacking me and launching insults and telling me why I'm wrong. I'm the one that needs to be playful, and why haven't you done this for me? And there's something wrong with us. We're not meant to be together. That's anxiety. That's fear. That's a hard energy, shame. We cannot create love and understanding and actual sustainable change by using fear or anxiety, animosity. What we can do to create sustainable change is make the change within ourselves, to feel rooted into the change that we wanted and becoming rooted in fun and play and passion. And that's what I'm starting to learn, the language of passion and fun. And as I learn that and I develop that in myself, I'm inviting my partner to do the same and to allow himself to soften in a way. I say soften not because soft is better than hard. We need both. We need black and white. We need night and day. A lot of us in this society, if you live in the US or some other Western country, we're driven by our career, by winning, by our image of ourselves. There's a lot of hardness in this world, a lot of proving myself, a lot of putting on a mask, a lot of hiding so that I can perform, so that I can have more money and the biggest house and the fanciest car. So I talk about softness because I believe we need a balancing in our society. And that goes for men and women. There's a time and a place to have that hard energy, to act because you're afraid. You're trying to get away from somebody who is attacking you. You certainly would run away and bring out that hardness. But when we're home and we're just chilling, and we're just having a good time, but you're still not able to relax, that's the hardness coming in. And often it can come with the inner critic telling you why this is wrong, that's wrong, this isn't meant to be, we're supposed to break up. Fear enters the chat. If we can calm and understand and be with our own fear, again, with that self-compassion and the self-love and understanding that the fear that we have around whatever the change is that we want to create, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be afraid. It's normal. Anybody who has created any change that was worthwhile would agree that they were afraid at one point. I can tell you right now, there's a part of me that is scared shitless of making this show, of having an audience and of not having an audience. All of the fears, the full range, of dying just suddenly in a car crash. I have all of the fears within me, and we all do. But are you going to ride with the fear? Are you going to just kind of let it be there? Maybe build some acceptance for your fear so that when you go into create change in the relationship, you can do it with that really strong foundation within yourself of knowing what you want, knowing how it feels, knowing how you want it to look, also trusting how it unfolds too. We don't have to know everything. We don't have to know exactly how things are going to happen. But I say no, just kind of like, oh, yeah, I know I want to feel open. I know I want to appreciate the beauty of this life. I don't know what that means day to day. It might mean that I go to the zoo and I appreciate that. It might mean that I get my car's oil changed and I appreciate that, or I go on a hike. So it's not about micromanaging every moment, but just knowing like this is important to me. I want to have more fun. We only get to live one time on this planet. So I would love to experience a fun and passionate and alive life. So that's the kind of change that I have worked on creating within myself instead of asking my partner to provide it for me, because that's just asking too much of our partner. We can have things that we ask for, we can make requests. To ask them to make us feel a certain way is honestly ludicrous. And I have felt that way, so I'm not even trying to point fingers. But it's crazy to think that our partner could make us feel some way, especially, consistently. Make me feel happy today and tomorrow and the next day and every fucking day. You make me feel playful. No, we got to start with me. The change that I desire in my hologram, that starts with me. It starts with me. I'm the projector. So what kind of tune-ups need to happen in the projector so that the image is what I want it to be? And it's very much possible, by the way, too. So I'm here to tell you, yes, it's difficult. It's trying. It's not for the faint of heart. And it is so fucking worth it. And it works. So the biggest changes in my life that I have experienced, I'm 30 years old. So, make of that what you will. They have come with a change in perception. It's the craziest part. The the biggest changes in my life didn't necessarily happen because I moved to another state, because I moved to a different apartment, I got a pet, I got into a relationship. Yes, those were changes and they were wonderful changes too. But some of the more foundational changes in my life have happened on a perception level. So how I perceived something changed. And that is really kind of trippy to experience, almost like the ground is shaking underneath you and shifting. And, one day you open your eyes and you go, oh my God, I'm so much more, confident now. I'm so much more willing to use my voice now. I mean, my voice has literally changed because of how I perceive myself and how I have created love for myself. Now, what happens if I start to create change within myself and I'm doing all the inner work and I'm noticing more playfulness in my life? I'm having more fun. I'm doing all the things, insert whatever change you wanted to happen in your relationship. What happens when I've done all that? The invitation was supposed to happen. My partner was supposed to accept, but they didn't. And I'm noticing that my partner isn't meeting me where I'm at. Well, if you haven't yet, it is time to talk. It's time to have a conversation. We can only get so far by doing work only within ourselves. I totally recommend it. I think everybody in a relationship, it would behoove them to do work on themselves. And I am a huge proponent. And sometimes, or I would say probably most of the time, when we want change, it does need to be verbally communicated. Words are very important as far as speaking what we desire to happen in the relationship. Not only just putting words to it, that's a big step. A lot of people don't even say what they want and they just keep it shut up within themselves, not sharing their desires for their whole life. Being able to just speak to those desires is a huge thing. And then to actually have a constructive conversation about that. Maybe you have some boundaries. Maybe you have a request. We can't demand our partner do anything, or I don't believe we should. It's a very controlling and manipulative tactic when we're demanding something. We do want to invite and we want to make requests. Are you willing to do this? And if they're not, that's a whole other conversation. Something interesting about change is that it can happen on kind of a surface level. It can happen at a really deep level where we actually have a change in our values sometimes. And that can rock a relationship, certainly. We have to make sure by usually talking a lot of the time that we're on the same page. So a lot of people will actually get divorced or split up because there is a fundamental change in values. We are not anchored together with that same value system. I no longer value feeling safe emotionally. Well, now I value adventure, but my partner doesn't. But that's really important to me. There's a conversation there. Are you guys willing to make it work and to compromise and continue to be together? Or is the change in values so deep, so fundamental that you're not going to be able to see eye to eye with each other anymore? That is certainly a great question to ask. I can't get into it right now. Maybe that's a good topic for another day. What happens when we have a fundamental change in values? But for something like what I worked on, which was, bringing in more playfulness, most of the time, I will say my fiance and I, we have a good relationship. He's just very willing to just go with the flow. And so there really was never a explicit conversation around, let's be more playful, let's have more fun. But I did notice a change in the way that we interacted, and I still do to this day. Part of it could be that we've grown up and we have matured together. But I think an element too is the work that I've done on myself that has invited him into a place where he can relax more too, because I'm not so controlling and I'm not hovering over him and as much. It's still happening. We do our best with this kind of stuff. We just do our best. We're not AI. We can't be programmed to never do something again or to be the perfect partner and just read the perfect script and know exactly what to say all the time. That's another part of this show that I think is really important. I want to emphasize all the time that none of this is perfect. This is like organic work. You're just going with the flow a lot of the time. I like to be like a sea turtle and just kind of chill while I'm riding that wave of emotion as I go through all of this stuff, this change. Perfection or change happening overnight, it's unrealistic to expect that, in my belief. In some way, we are always taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We're still moving forward, but it gives us a little bit of leeway and a little room to make mistakes. See, there's the self-compassion element. Yeah, I can make mistakes. I'm going through a really big change and mistakes are bound to happen. I'm trying new things. I'm trying to change. I'm putting myself out there in whatever way. You probably are making yourself vulnerable. If you're making change, looking at your beliefs, it can feel vulnerable. So can we give ourselves the room to fuck up, to fuck it up? Maybe you even tell your partner, look, I'm working on this thing and it's really important to me that I don't feel like I'm nagging you or I don't feel whatever thing I don't want to feel anymore. And I probably will still do it and I will try to catch myself. I will at least be aware that it's happening. That's a big, big part of this, the awareness. I'm going to mention this book that I think would be really helpful if you're having trouble with that last part that I talked about where you're having the conversation around the change that you desire. It can be a conversation that you would want to sit down together in the evening when you don't have any other distractions or some other time in your day where you can just be the two of you and no interruptions. You can have this conversation that could get vulnerable, and you really want to have the appropriate setting for this kind of an exchange. I would say that across the board for any difficult conversation, not just with your partner, anybody, a family member, a friend, setting the scene for a little less stress, it's always very helpful. And I'll recommend the book Nonviolent Communication. I've mentioned that book probably 5 times on my show already. I think it's a really great book for giving you structure around how you can communicate your feelings to other people. And he also tells you how to make requests in a way that is loving. And he gives you a step-by-step process for formulating and verbalizing and going through the process of sharing how you feel and making change. essentially. That is today's show. I hope that was helpful to you. If you have felt confused around how to start making change in your relationship, I can tell you that this is a strategy that I have used myself, not necessarily because I wanted to create change in my relationship, more because I just wanted to work on myself. But then I noticed how our relationship changed. I noticed how when I softened, the relationship softened. I noticed how when I had more fun, the relationship was more fun. So this was kind of an experimental thing for me where I looked back and went, oh, that's so interesting how it was my relationship was a mirror for what I was working on. And I guess that makes sense. The relationship is 50% me. So it would make sense that the dynamic between us would shift and would adjust as I do so. And I think that's really cool because it means that we can reap benefits when we do inner work, not only with our own stuff, my career, my family, my friends, my desires, but then it also bleeds into our relationship and we reap the benefits there too. Pretty cool. If you enjoyed today's show, I would totally appreciate a rating if you're listening on Spotify or Apple. If you are watching on YouTube, I would love if you could give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. You can find me on social media. I am on Instagram at Coached by Kelby. I'm also on TikTok with that same handle. And you can send me an email if you want to ask me a question that you'd like me to answer anonymously on the show. You can email me at coachedbykelby@gmail.com. I'm also open to working with people one-on-one. I work with couples too, so you can email me or DM me on social. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next Friday.